Well, I'll let my team continue to admit everyone, but we might just give it a couple of extra minutes. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue Sansom, and I'm the manager of the Australian Service Excellence Standards. And I just want to welcome you all because you're all coming from different parts of the country, which is exciting, and it's the beauty of this of these tools that we have, this platform that we have that enables that to happen. So so welcome. I just can't believe the response that we've had to this workshop. It's been absolutely amazing. So I hope you get some value out of it today. There'll be something for everyone, I'm sure. And let me just, first of all, I'll share the slides in just a moment, but I do want to just acknowledge that we are all meeting on the traditional lands of the Aboriginal people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with this country. And I'm sitting on Kaurna country, which is so. And the Kaurna people have started to rebuild their Kaurna language, which was lost for 180, 150 years. So Ngā Mani means, are you all good? So I'd also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people's cultural heritage. It's still very important to them today, and pay our respects to elders past and present and emerging, and to our Aboriginal colleagues who are with us today as well. And as I move and share the slides, I will also like to welcome the presenters that we have today, and it will be Kylie Cox. Can you please just wave your hands and talk? Because Kylie Cox is the acting program manager from the Healthy Workplaces in the Healthy Promotion branch at Wellbeing SA. Kylie is a registered nurse, and she's decided 20 years ago that she wanted to find a way to prevent people ending up in hospital. And so she studied to do a master's in public health. And so for the last 8 years, she's been dedicated to helping businesses create healthy workplaces. And she works across sectors, so manufacturing, small business, as well as community services sector. So she's got a girth of wealth, information and resources that you can access. And then we also have the members from the National Healthy Working Group, Workplace Working Group. And I've got Rosalind Miller, who's from the Workplace Health and Safety Workplace Health and Safety in Queensland. We've also got Rachel McQuinney, who's from the Safe Work New South Wales, Better Regulation Department of Customer Service. And we've got, and I apologise, Kate Podrahula from Safe Work New South Wales. Is that right?
Yep. Thank you.
And later we'll also have Marie Davidson, who's the director of the Highway Group, and she's a member of one of our assessors on our panel. So it's going to be quite a session. There's going to be lots of information given out to you. So let me just share my screen so I can actually get to the presentation. And through the course, oh, come on, from the beginning. There we go. You'll hear that beep, and I apologise. That will be people still coming in. So welcome everyone. I've done that. I've done the welcome to country, and I've introduced our speakers. You will get a copy of these slides after the session, as well as the recording, and any resources or links will also be there as well. Okay. So I've put you all on mute initially when it comes to asking a question. There's two ways you can do it. You can put your hand up, or you can put your question into the chat. I think we prefer putting the question into the chat, because then we've got a bit of a record of that question, and if we don't get to answer your questions, we'll be able to do it after the session as well. Okay, and let me just move on to the next bit. So this is basically our agenda. So we'll be going through some background information. We'll be giving you some definitions of what a healthy workplace is. We'll be putting a question to the poll for you to participate in, and then we'll be discussing some research, the critical success factors that that we know have really shown to create a healthy workplace. We'll also get you to meet one of our external assessors, who will talk about the types of evidence, how much evidence, how to create a system, and any of those red flags for you. And then there'll be members from the National Working Group who will talk about the resources and supports that are available to you depending on the state that you're from. Okay. But for some of you, before I go any further, I just want to say a little bit about the Australian Service Excellence Standards, because for some of you, this is your first foray into the Australian Service Excellence Standards, and we sometimes call it Ases. We often call it Aces because we like to create acronyms for everyone to be confused about. I've gone and put an introduction booklet into the file for you, so that you can gather some other information if you want. But essentially, ASIS was developed in the early 2000s. It's now 22 years old. It is designed for community service sector. It uses the language and the program language that we often use in service provision. And it's been a well-tested and trialled set of standards. So we like to think of it as a good roadmap to excellence. So hence the name. And there are two levels. So there's the certificate level and then there's the award level. And for most of you, you will be asked by your funders to do the certificate level. And that's the level that covers off on your, you know, all parts of your organisation, so all of your functions. And so we have focused this new requirement into the certificate level. And there'll be work happening later to build up the award level. So, so if you're haven't got a copy of the evidence guide, I've actually I have to upload that in the team site, and you'll be able to access that at some point. Why did we you know, needed to change the standard? And I'm just going to briefly say that back in 2010, we engaged with Health Promotion at the time to, you know, can we introduce this concept? But we did it in such a way that was so broad that we use the words to provide and to promote as the key words to have a healthy workplace. And then we gave some, you know, an extensive list of examples of how you would do that. But what we found was over the years, you know, varying degrees of how that was implemented, and which was good. You know, in some instances, people went full throttle and implemented a whole system and strategy and various initiatives. And then there's other organisations that, you know, used a fruit bowl, offered a fruit bowl at a morning tea, and we felt that's not quite what we're looking at. That's not. We need to give some more guidance for our organisations. So we went back to Wellbeing SA and talked about how can we beef this up? How can we strengthen this? What does the research say about creating a healthy workplace? And then COVID happened. The pandemic stalled a few things. So so here we are after 3 years, finally actually starting to launch the new requirement in version 9 of certificate level. So and what does that look like? So before we had a very broad statement that said to promote or to provide a healthy workplace, and that was it. This time we've actually said the organisation demonstrates a commitment to providing a healthy workplace that protects and promotes staff health and well-being. And there's actually 4 indicators. So those indicators are leadership commitment, policies and procedures, physical promotion of health and wellbeing programs, activities and supports, physical environment, and monitoring, evaluation and data driven. So we've actually subsumed that promotion of health and wellbeing into another aspect of it. But those indicators are what assessors will be looking for. And I'm going to now actually pass it over to Kylie, who will who's ready to give us the rationale as to why having a healthy workplace is very important. So over to you, Kylie.
Thanks. So are you happy to continue to drive the slides, and I'll just let you know next slide?
Yep, all good.
Fabulous. That's really great. I think there's one more after this. This just talks about the process of the standard being developed. If you just flick to the next one.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Let me continue. So, all right. So, who was involved in actually developing this new requirement, new standard? And we had a review done by the South Australia's Population Health and Prevention Agency in Wellbeing SA. And we engaged with the National Workplace Health and Wellbeing Community of Practice, which is an alliance between work health and safety authorities in the health departments and affiliated health services across the nation. And we also conducted a survey with the sector back last year and asked service providers to give us some feedback on what we were proposing as the new standard. And so we've used all of that feedback and research and placed it into the new requirements. So now I'll flick over to you, Kylie. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sue, and good morning, everyone. My name's Kylie Cox. I'm your acting program manager at Wellbeing SA in the Healthy Workplaces space. Really excited to have nearly 100 of you on board. I'd like to acknowledge that, yeah, I'm on Kaurna land today as well and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Can I just check that my colleagues are out there too from the national group? So we've got Roz from Queensland. Are you on, Roz?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Fabulous. Good morning. Thanks for coming along as well. And Rachel, you there from New South Wales? Yep. Great. Good morning. And Kate, I think I heard you earlier, but you're there as well.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Wonderful. So Kate, Roz and Rachel, at any point in time when I'm talking, you're more than welcome to jump in as well when we're going through the slides talking about the evidence and provide any case studies or examples that you know of businesses who have done some good things around healthy workplaces. So what we're going to do this morning, just to begin with, is actually just give the context to, where the standard comes from, why is the research coming in, and then we'll begin to break down a little bit the elements of what we're looking for across this standard. And we're so much interested in this, I think that there's certainly going to be some potential for future follow-ups to provide some more information and support where required. So, happy to have your feedback on that as well. So to get started, I think it's always nice to start with some definitions around healthy workplace, because I think, as we know, you hear the word health and you hear the word well-being, and it's quite nebulous and it means lots of things to different people. So in the context of what we're looking for, we use both the International Labour Organisation and also the World Health Organisation, very world recognised organisations in this space. So our definition around just general workplace well-being, it relates to all aspects of working life. It's from the quality and safety of the physical and work environment. It's about how individual workers feel about their work, the work environment that people are working in, the climate and the culture at work, and across the work organisation. So it's it's about the workplace, not necessarily just about the individual worker when we think about workplace wellbeing. And then our definition that we use for a healthy workplace, if you just go to the next slide, please, Sue, is from the World Health Organization, who have recognised that the workplace is a significant area for us to work in relation to workplace health promotion, but also there's just that synergy that happens with workplace health and safety. And so the definition doesn't say you must do this, 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 and this when we talk about the definition of a healthy workplace. It's really important conceptual elements that need to be there that create this healthy workplace environment. And so it's one in which workers and managers collaborate. So a really key important element is collaboration and consultation. And we're looking across the ability of protecting and promoting, which is also an important element. So coming from a traditional work health and safety, OHS, or has been around the protection element, we're also looking at promoting. And it's safe, health and well-being. So there's a couple of core components there too that we're looking across those elements. And it's based on these four sort of areas that we look at. So it's around the health and safety in the physical work environment, like we said. So what's happening in that physical work environment space. We're looking at both physical work conditions, but also psychosocial work environment. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just in terms of the increases of psychosocial hazards and mental health in the workplace. It is around personal health resources. So that's where sort of the individual comes in terms of individual responsibility, but also how the workplace can support individuals to be as healthy as that they can be. And the fourth element is also recognising how the workplace links in with community and the wider aspects of society. So that's just to set some scenes of definitions in terms of where we come from when we're thinking about workplace health and wellbeing and a healthy workplace. I'll just go to the next slide, please, Sue. So we're going to try a little bit of Slido this morning, because it's always a little bit tricky when you're working on a, in a situation where you've got 94 people out there. I prefer to have people face to face. So if you've got your phones there handy next to you, and you just go on to your search, your Google search, or however you get onto it, and you just put in slido.com, it should open up directly straight to the Slido page and allow you to put a link in, a code. It will ask you for a code, and if you can add the code that's on the screen. And I'm just going to do a test one to begin with. And so the first test question here is if you could add in, what's your dream holiday destination? Just give me a moment here. I'm just pulling it up on the screen in front of me as well in terms of the votes, and I'll share this with you. So Sue, I'm just going to take over the screen for a moment so we can see people's results here. So hopefully you'll be able to see my screen now, letting us know where everyone would like to go. Italy and Canada and Bora Bora, Ireland, the Maldives, somewhere warm. That's definitely on my list. That's great. So we definitely know that that's working. Okay, so what my next question for you, just in terms of the poll, is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Sue, if you can pop yours one back up just for a moment. Backwards and forwards if it works. And so when we think about a healthy workplace, we do know that organisations are at different levels of what we kind of classify as a journey, and there's different ways to consider this, but it's a really important element. I guess we know that safety does need to be, you can go to the next slide, thanks Sue. Employee safety is usually level 1, where we need to know that there is a focus on safety in the workplace. But there might not be little leadership support for workplace health and wellbeing. And so there's kind of a limited focus on health and wellbeing. So that's level 1. Level 2, I want you to think about in your organisation that there is a view that your employees are people, and we do focus a little bit on health and wellbeing. There's beginning to be, some interaction, some ad hoc activities. So that would be level 2. Moving up to level 3, there's a real recognition that healthy work, the environment's really important. The workplace barriers are removed. There's a real focus on equity and accessibility. So it's really starting to be ingrained. And at the fourth level, we've got a healthy organisation where it's really embedded into culture. There's active leadership support. And so I'd like you now, using your Slido, I've opened up, should be open now for the next question, for you to be able to rate what number are you at in your organisation, 1, 2, 3 or 4. I just get someone to confirm that it's on that question.
It was there, but then it disappeared.
Is that active now?
Yep.
Great, we've got votes coming in. Up to 40 votes right now. We quite often see a split across this, and there's recognition certainly from the assessors that when they're looking at this, that this will be taken into view. We really want to look at how we can transition people from one level to the next level, and from one level to the next level, and create change. Okay, so I won't share the screen this time. I'm just going to tell you the results. It will save us going backwards and forwards with the presentation slides. And so at the moment for level 1, we've got around about 3% of organisations. Level 2, we've got 30% of organisations. We've got majority of people sitting at level 3 in 35%. And then in level 4 for the healthy organisation is sitting at 30%. 33%. So that's really wonderful to see, and that works quite well, I guess, in terms of what we usually see across organisations and where they're at. So for those who are at level 1 and 2, we look to really shift you up to level 3 and beyond. For those that are at level 4, that's amazing. There's 30% of you. You're going to be great organisations to help other people learn as well from what you're doing and what you're learning, what you've put in place and what's worked well and what hasn't worked well. So that's really great to see. I'll just go to the next slide. Thanks, Roz. Sue. Okay, so my last question here for you, just in terms of some interactive, in what signposts would you see in organisations that you might see or feel that it's an unhealthy workplace? So I'll open up this one as a word cloud.
Kylie,
and
sorry, Kylie, someone's asked to show the Slido slide again so that they can reactivate.
I'll let you know the number. Oh yeah, you're going to go back. Sure.
Yeah. So if you want to have another go, you can go straight to the QR code and it will take you straight in. All right. Take a photo, use your camera, and the URL will come up. All right. And now I'll move back to the slide that we were at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So they're all coming in right now. I might share this one if that's okay. I'm going to boot you off, Sue. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Yep. So lots of absenteeism, turnover, conflict, staff absence. So all these things that we see in an unhealthy workplace. And the importance of having the standard in trying to support organisations to be of excellence and high performing workplaces. After hours emails. They've certainly snuck up when we've been working from home for sure as well. Yeah, lots of micromanaging workers' compensation claims. So you guys certainly, you see it, you feel it in all of your organisations. So definitely a great understanding there of why it's important to look at this standard and how we can create a healthy workplace. So I'm just going to go through now some of the other kind of key components that's coming through from the research for us in creating a healthy workplace, and the reasons why it's been included in the standard as well. So Sue, I'll get you just to go back to your slides again, please. So the 5 real reasons that we see that this is of interest and important right now in organisations and creating healthy workplaces, that there's interest and demand, workplace demographics, health and wellbeing status, legislative requirements, and increase in the research of effectiveness. So you can flick to the next slide there, Sue, thank you. So from an interest and demand perspective, it's really interesting, like we've become this wellbeing era. This slide just shows the amount of people who have looked at health and wellbeing and the increases in that over time. And so, it's only up to 2020. I can only imagine now in 2022, going through the pandemic, how relevant and important it has become. We've become the wellbeing era. There's a lot of money to be made in this aspect too, from health and wellbeing as well, with a lot of companies and organisations who are trying to get us and to remain as healthy as we possibly can. So real interest for it. Next slide, thanks, Sue. In terms of demand, there's been an increase over time. So this is our South Australian data. We've been asking this question since 2011 about what priority do you think that your workplace should place on health and wellbeing of its employees? And back in 2011, it was 55% approximately, and then in 2020. 9 years later, it's up now to 77%. And I would like to say if we did it again now, that it would probably even be higher. We've also seen a change though in employers and how much they are actually doing in this space. So back in 2011, there was only nearly 30% of organisations doing something. And as we've just seen in our poll results, nearly everybody's doing something, and we're up to 59% in 2020. So the interest and demand is certainly increasing significantly, and so that's one of our reasons. The next reason why that's really becoming important is that our our workforce demographic, yeah, you can go to the next slide, thanks, Sue. Our workforce demographic is changing, and what that means is we've got more female participation in the workplace, we've got more cultural diversity, we've got a range of older workers because we're living longer. With technology now, we're living longer, but it also means our retirement age is increasing as well. And then on the flip side, we've got our young millennials and our young workers who are bringing a different demographic in the workforce, and they're going to be, in the workforce for a longer period of time, wanting to change jobs more, and they're actually demanding and expecting a lot more around health and wellbeing and a link to their values for them to stay in the organisations where they work. And so that's really important for us to consider around health and wellbeing and why it's relevant for it to be in place in organisations. Next slide, thanks, Sue. We're also recognising that across, this is worldwide in particular, but chronic disease and healthy lifestyle behaviours have crept in. We've got 1 in 2 Australians have got chronic disease, and we've got increases around cardiovascular disease and diabetes and asthma, all of these chronic conditions that do play out in our lives in the workplace. And it becomes an opportunity for us in that setting to be able to support better health and wellbeing. And we also have got the opportunity, I guess, within the workplace setting to recognise how the workplace can affect and put an impact further on these chronic conditions. So these physical aspects are really important for us to consider when we're creating a healthy workplace as well. And, the aspect of the costs of these on our businesses are actually quite large to our organisations and also to the broader community. And then second to this, in terms of chronic disease, the next slide along is around mental health. I could have put up so many slides around mental health. The one that I chose probably is not the most exciting one, but there are so many more. But this one's really just showing the percentage of people from the most recent statistics that have come up from the National Study of Mental Health and Wellbeing. And so showing the age groups, males and females, in relation to those people who have said they've got a mental disorder. So we know that there's at least 1 in 4 people who have some kind of mental illness. We've got people who are suffering psychological distress, and we see this playing out in our workforce quite significantly at the moment. And so creating a healthy workplace will also help support some of these elements. There's a lot happening in this space around mental health and wellbeing, but we also see mental health and wellbeing then playing out in physical health and wellbeing, because the two just work and coincide with each other, quite consistently. The next reason why that we're having this standard go in place is the legislative requirements. So most of you would be aware that there is a new model code of practice that's come out around managing psychosocial hazards at work. If you haven't seen that, jump on and have a look at the links from Safe Work Australia, and all of our jurisdictions will have information around mental health and psychosocial hazards. But there's certainly a lot more emphasis and understanding now around what the psychosocial hazards are in a workplace and how we can mitigate that risk and prevent psychosocial injury. So that's a really important element. And next one, thanks, Sue. The other thing that we're seeing is that there certainly is an increase in evidence overall. So like you've all just said, you can see what highlights an unhealthy organisation and how that puts pressure and cost on an organisation. So for those organisations where they have put health and wellbeing in place and have got a healthier workforce, we certainly see that there is less absenteeism, there's increases in presenteeism, there's less compensation claims around injuries. The aspects related to recruitment and retention, employees feeling more engaged and being more productive are really starting to come through quite strongly. And the return on investment statistics are more wider and varied now as well. So we're seeing returns on investment from anywhere from a return on investment from $2 up to $15, depending on the type and the size of your organisation. So certainly a lot more benefit from a financial perspective as well. Thank you, Sue. So I'm going to do one more poll for you here, because it's always interesting to know what drives organisations in this space. And when we're working with business, it's important for us to understand what leaders within each organisation are looking for, like what's their leverage point to get them really interested, involved, and making sure that they're looking at how they can create a healthy workplace. And it's really different for different organisations. And so I'm going to open up my next poll here that asks, should be activated now. It asks, what is your organisation's leverage? Do you think because it's the safe thing to do and your organisation really wants to progress this from a work health and safety perspective only? Is it because it's a financial component? You can see the reduction of costs from absenteeism and presenteeism. Is it the right thing to do from an employee engagement perspective, retaining staff, building great culture? Or the legislative thing to do? And I probably could have had one in there that said all of the above, but I'm making you choose by the look of it. And there's certainly, this has been really interesting over the past couple of years, where it used to be really strong just because of a WHS perspective, and it's certainly shifting now a lot as well, about creating a culture of care and being a great environment for people to work. And the results are actually showing that quite strongly at the moment. There's 60 people who have voted at this point in time, and nearly 70% of people have said it's the right thing to do in caring for our workers. Followed closely by 50% with HR element, employee engagement and retention. And the meeting legislative compliance and the safe thing to do is sitting at around about 25% each. So certainly, I think probably coming from the health services department, that value set that comes with us is that we're really caring people and we want to do the best by our employees. It usually comes with that care set of values as well. So I get you to think about that as well, in terms of the leadership within your organisations. Do they have that same drive as what you do? Because sometimes we do need to change our tact depending on who we're trying to get on board. Okay, I'll move in now to what we classify as some of the critical success factors, and a little bit more of, how you go about this and why it's important. And for Ros, Rachel and Kate, we do this all slightly different across our jurisdictions, but they would all agree that the core concepts are always the same. These elements don't change. And so they may be called critical success factors. They could be steps. The first one that is 100% critical is having leadership commitment. And, you would know, and our research tells us that if you haven't got leaders who are committed to this, then it's not, it's just not going to happen in a lot of ways. It's always going to be push, push, push. So leadership commitment is really, really significantly important, and hence, therefore, that's why it's become one of the key elements also within the standard in terms of what we're looking for for that leadership commitment to occur and to happen. And we see this play out in different ways. So, for example, an organisation I was working with not long ago, their leadership commitment was actually their leader coming along to their staff meeting and standing up and saying, right, we're really interested in what's going to be happening in health and wellbeing for the next 12 months. In particular, we're going to have a focus on mental health, and just ensured that everybody knew what was going on within that organisation, was supported by him and supported by the rest of the leadership team. But leadership commitment also can be around resourcing and ensuring that someone within the organisation has got has been given the responsibility around health and wellbeing. So that's another way of being able to show leadership commitment. Another way we see leadership commitment play out in particular too is across policies and procedures. And so that sort of is going to fall down into our next standard and what we're looking for within this next standard around policies and procedures. So we usually advocate that organisations will either have their workplace health and safety policy that really highlights the importance of a healthy workplace. They may actually have a standalone health and wellbeing policy or a standalone mental health policy. And we're seeing that certainly a lot more within organisations for them to have a health and wellbeing policy. And I'm going to say that all of us would have those in place. So Ros, Rachel and Kate on our websites, if that's not something you have got and it's something that you'd like to have, that's there. But there are so many other policies and procedures that fall into health and wellbeing that are really important as well. You know, your bullying and harassment and your working from home and your flexible work arrangements, and there's so many components that fit underneath this. So you can see within the standard that we've tried to tease those out as well, so organisations can see how those policies and procedures support a healthy workplace environment. So you can see on the right here, the framework that we use here in South Australia is that we like to have healthy places, healthy vision and healthy people. And the research also tells us that you really need to have at least one of those key elements within your organisation, because if you do just one of those, it's not really enough. And as Sue said, quite often we get to the healthy people and say, yeah, we're going to give you a fruit bowl, or we might put on a yoga class. But it's not supported by these other two really key important elements that more are the systematic changes. So that's where the healthy policies and places and people come into it in these three areas. So policies and procedures, my other recommendation there too, I'm not going to give names of organisations but I've worked with, but when I've gone and done some consultancy work with them, we're doing a lot in this space. They had leave that people could take on their birthday, and they had flexible leaves, and they had flu shots, and they would have morning teas. So they were actually doing a lot in this space. It wasn't pulled together. And so they created their health and wellbeing policy that then allowed them to pull everything that that workplace was doing to support workers' health and wellbeing into the one area. And were able to then communicate that out with staff. It then went into their inductions. So everyone within that workplace knew that this organisation really cares for our employees and this is what we're doing. So the success behind that has been absolutely fabulous in terms of them doing that as well. So great critical success factor there. The next one that sits down from here is around promotion of health and wellbeing programs, activities and supports. So in this sense, this is more related to that healthy people element, what you can do, you know, what might work for your people, what activities might be around, what support services could be in place via learning and development, workshops, all those types of things that can support health and wellbeing, you know, in that aspect. So I've seen a total array of how this has played out in organisations, from you know, step challenges to sleep challenges to EAP support services, healthy food lunches. There's been organisations who have ensured that in their KPIs that all new managers undertake leadership and management training courses, so they've got the soft skills to be able to communicate with staff members. So there's a whole range of things that can happen within this place. Around healthy people and promotion of health and wellbeing programs. We then go into the physical environment, and the physical environment's really quite important, certainly from a safety perspective. The physical environment and work design has been something that's been around for a really long time and needs to be in place also when we're creating a healthy workplace as well. And some of the other evidence that's been coming through from a physical environment perspective also relates to, you know, how it feels when you go somewhere. So is there good lighting? Is there great air? You know, what's the air conditioning like? Is there greenery if it's available? For most of us who look like we're sitting at home at the moment, what's our ergonomic setup when we're sitting at home and working from home to ensure that our physical work environment is producing great health and wellbeing outcomes for us as well? Other big elements that I've seen work well within a physical work environment is just ensuring that if we take healthy food, for an example, that within your workplace, you've got kitchen facilities that are going to support people to be able to create a healthy food environment and healthy lunches. So it's basic components that a lot of workplaces can have in place. Around having microwaves and fridges, cutlery, but also then considering those workers who are on the road and what that might look like too. So that's the sort of physical and work environment. We've seen a lot more sit-stand desks happening in terms of sedentary nature, but still it's really important in terms of putting in place things that create this environment for good health and well-being. And the last critical success factor, and one that we probably would all agree that we see probably not as strong as the others, is looking at how you use data to drive what you do. So it's part of the needs assessment process, which we would say would be step 2 in terms of if you're starting from scratch and setting up a health and wellbeing strategy or program. You get your leaders on board, and step 2 is identifying needs. So it's really important, this element of knowing how your data in your business is influencing the actions that you take. And so there's components here around surveying staff around what they need and what they want, having a look at your workers' compensation data or your absentees data, your sick leave, anything that's going to give you intel and understanding around what's going to be best for your workplace, because you can't do everything around health and well-being. We'd like to, but you need to prioritize within the organisation what's going to be best for your organisation. And so therefore, being data driven is really important. And then second to that, when we get to step 4, which is about monitoring and reviewing, is understanding what's been successful and what hasn't been successful. So for any change management process, this comes into play. And we talk about healthy workplaces and creating healthy workplaces like any change management process in an organisation where we're looking at doing this. And so the monitoring will allow you to see, are you seeing change across your workforce? And are you able to see if there's short-term change, which is more around team morale and engagement, versus the long-term change where you might be seeing health behaviour change, but also culture change. And so really important to have a look at that data monitoring and evaluation. So that's also one of the key elements as a critical success factor when we're looking at the standards. So these, if you've got all of these in place, really is how we sort of talk about how to create this healthy workplace. So after Marie does her talk, I know that our jurisdictions are going to go through some of the tools and resources and supports that we've all got individually on our websites that can help your organisations, if you're at level 1 and 2, how to move along further, but also for those organisations who are at 3 and 4, that will certainly help you quality check and improve what you've got to ensure that you are aligned with best research, ensure that best evidence practice is behind what you're doing. So whatever you're investing in, you know that it's actually going to be beneficial and the right thing to do, most efficient and effective. That was a mile of gate. I'm not sure if Marie's on board just yet, but I'm happy to take questions, and I'm happy for Ros, Rachel or Kate if you wanted to give any specific examples there in relation to the critical success factors.
Kylie, I think it's Ros from Queensland. Thanks for inviting us along today. One thing that we've seen, particularly over the last 10 years, is that the individual strategies that you're talking about, where the fruit bowls and the 10,000 steps, they've been a really good kickstart to a lot of workplaces. But where we've seen the really sustainable change and those that have built health and wellbeing programs into just the way that they do work has come from those policy changes and looking at the way work is organised in particular. So I think one of the polls that we did before of the unhealthy workplace having emails outside of work hours, one program that we did with like a group of schools was actually to just set expectations down that emails will be responded to between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And it's such a simple thing, but it just meant that teachers and the school staff knew what was expected of them, parents knew what was expected of them, and then students also knew what was expected from a response time. And so just that small change meant that teachers weren't stressing about, oh, I've just had dinner, I need to get this email back, otherwise parents are going to be right on my tail the next day. By having those expectations, it meant that that pressure was off and they went, no, I can actually put my work down and be at home and be present with their family. And that was something that, particularly through COVID as well, just those small parts of how do you set the boundaries between work and home was really tested. And so just the way the work is organised has been really critical in these last couple of years, but we've seen the best results when organisations have put that in place, and also focusing on that environment change where is there options to be active within the workplace, whether that be an office space or even within manufacturing, of having height adjustable workstations. If they're doing mechanical work, how did they get the bench to come up to the tallest person or down to the shortest person? That's seen really big impacts on the sedentary workspace, but also the ergonomics as well, and how people can be in the best possible posture for the day and be able to change between it as well, so that there's just movement built into the way work is being done. So they're just some of the different examples that we've been able to see and share as well.
Thank you, Ros. Does Rachel and Kate want to add to that?
Hello. I'll just quickly add that in terms of some of the things that Rosalind was saying around making those more substantial policy changes, something that we focus on a lot at Safe Work New South Wales and our Mentally Healthy Workplaces team is looking at job design. And a lot of the time our advice that we give to workplaces is to try to look at, and this is very much going off of the code of practice, and New South Wales, Safe Work New South Wales has our own code of practice for managing psychosocial hazards at work. And looking at some of the factors like excessive demands and low control. Is there a lack of support? Is there low recognition? In every industry, every workplace has different risk factors that can affect the workplace and affect worker mental health. And then trying to develop a plan around addressing what the key factors are that are impacting your workplace. So for example, if it's poor change management, developing a plan to manage that, and getting that from the consultation from workers to understand, okay, what are the factors that's impacting your workplace, and then putting a plan in place to address those risk factors. And I found it really interesting, the diagram that you guys showed with getting leadership support and then sort of continuing along the process. We have one really similar to that on our website, and it also starts with getting that leadership support, consulting workers, developing a plan, and then going into evaluating the plan and reevaluating, and it's all a sort of a circular process. So yeah, it's very much aligned to what we're doing here in New South Wales from a mentally healthy workplaces perspective.
Thank you, Rachel. Kate? No? Do you want to add anything?
No, I think Rachel just summed everything up from a Safe Work New South Wales perspective really well. And I guess from my perspective, I'm sort of more in the compliance space at Safe Work. So I lead the healthcare and social assistance sector plan. And I think one specific thing that we come across in this sector is there's so much focus on providing providing care for those that are the most vulnerable in the community. But it's always about that patient-centered care and, you know, participant-led care. And often we forget about the care and the health and safety of the workers. So I guess one of the things that I'm always trying to focus on is really trying to kind of bring that level back up to the, you know, safer work, safer care. That's the approach that we sort of take through our sector plan, is that we need to ensure that we're providing a safe and healthy workspace for the workers so that they can provide safer care. And that's one thing that we really try to promote through our sector plan.
That's great, Kate. That's great, because that's
because I think they're often forgetting about the worker. It's really always focused about the care of the patient, and that's 100%, that's really important. But I think we also really need to make sure we are looking at the safety and health of the workers as well.
That's good. Thank you, Kate. Now, Marie Davidson has arrived in the room. So, Marie, I'll hand it over to you. I can't see you, so she may be still having some issues. I'll just do a bit of an introduction. I've known Marie.
I am waiting for you, Sue.
Oh,
Can you see me?
No, I think I need to hear your voice. So over
Can you
to
hear
you,
me?
Marie. Yes, I can hear you. It's over to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I arrived just in time, didn't I? And thank you very, very much for allowing me to be part of this. It's so very exciting to see so many faces from right across the country. Isn't it wonderful? This technology is such an enabler. I am joining you today from a beautiful Mildura. I don't know if I've got any friends online who are also joining from Mildura, but I am lucky to be on the beautiful country of the Latchi Latchi, Barkindji and Mati Mati people. So I pay my respects to them. And I also would like to acknowledge all of you who are at various stages or in the throes of your preparation for your Service Excellence accreditation. So I just want to acknowledge how amazingly and fantastically challenging that is, however you're approaching it. You can tell that I'm a bit of a quality nut and I'm a bit positive about the opportunities that accreditation offers. And I'm also really passionate about workplace culture and where a healthy workplace sort of fits within that. And so I'm here to talk to you today with my assessor hat on. And I'm one of 9. So, you know, I'm only one of the assessors that you could choose or have chosen. So I'm talking to you about this standard and in terms of my interpretation of the evidence that you would present. So I want to give you some guidance about what I'm looking for, and it would hopefully, I mean, I know that this would be mirrored by any of my assessor colleagues, right? Partly because we have spoken in the background about what I might say today as well. So hope you find this helpful and interesting. Is it Kylie who is my human clicker?
No, it's Sue.
It's Sue who's my human clicker. Wow.
Yep, I'll just share the screen now.
Click. I feel like Ding. Are you old enough, any of you, to remember when Ding and you turned the page in the little golden books? Oh, I remember those days. The Highwire Group is a group of amazing consultants who have been working in the health and community services sector for yonks and yonks, and we've all been managers in services like you, and we've all had to manage accreditation like you. So there's a little picture of some of us. Click. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is a systems view, because when I'm coming into your organisation, I have a bit of a lens over how I'm having a look at the systems of work in your organisation. And I don't want to get too fancy pants on you, but I do want to say that I think that it's sort of systems that run the business and the people run the systems. So you've got a lot of complex things happening in your organisation, whether you're small or whether you're large. There's a lot of things that have moving parts. So that's how I think of a system, is a thing that's complex and has a lot of moving parts, right? A bit like your body, a bit like your car, a bit like your watch if you still wear one. And so what I'm looking for when I'm coming into your organisation is evidence that you have a bit of a systematic approach to providing a healthy workplace. Now, what do I mean by that? I would see 5 things present. So the 5 things that I'm looking for is if you've got a system around providing a healthy workplace, right, it's actually part of your business, not just like a little thing tacked on Wednesday afternoons for an hour, then you're going to have some things documented. Right, you're going to have all of your commitment to providing a healthy workplace documented, policies, procedures, other ways, maybe even a poster. Okay. All of the things that you've got documented there, all the things that need to happen would be delegated to someone. So there'll be things that the leaders do, there'll be things that the program managers do, there'll be things the volunteers do, things the staff do, whoever it is. It'll be all the parts will be delegated. What I'll also see is that all of the things that go into making a healthy workplace will be communicated to the people who need to know and understand. So you think about in your workplace, who needs to know and understand about how we provide a healthy workplace? Well, it's your board or your management committee, it's your staff, it's your managers, it's probably contractors and other people who might come in, like me. If I come and do your assessment, I need to know about how to support your healthy workplace, okay? So communicating what's going on is really important, and communicating in a way that people can know and understand, right? So think about who your people are that need to know, and how are you communicating it to them? Is it in a way that they can easily receive and understand? The next thing I'm really looking for is, and this is a very interesting part here, I sometimes see a little bit of a misstep between what's written down and what is implemented in practice. So if you're looking at my big red dot there, sometimes the documentation is out of step with what happens in practice. So I draw a little bit of a line between documented and implemented. So everything that's written down should happen, and everything that's happening should be written down. Okay, so there's a good connection between those two parts of the system. And any good system is going to be regularly evaluated, meaning you're going to be having a look at how your system that's supporting a healthy workplace is performing. All right. So if I was to describe the system to you that you have or should have around a healthy workplace, it's probably got 4 parts. You know from having a look at the standard earlier in this workshop that the 4 parts are leadership commitment, policies and procedures, programs and activities, and the physical environment. Right? So if we were to think about our system, we can see that you've got 4 parts to your system. So as a whole, please think about systemising it, document it, delegate it, communicate it, implement it, make sure it's implemented, and evaluate it. Have a look at whether it's working. Have you actually got a healthy workforce? Have you got people saying, oh, I think this is a really healthy workplace for me? Because really a healthy workplace is subjective, isn't it? Meaning it's the person themselves who will determine if they're feeling healthy, if they come to work and that's a place that promotes health. All right, people will determine that. It's not something you can say, well, we do it because there's our poster, or we do it because there's our procedure. It's really about, how does it make people feel, isn't it? Because health is a feeling, isn't it? So that's something to remember when you're evaluating your system around providing a healthy workplace, is what are the people saying? What's the evidence that people are feeling like this is a healthy workplace? So there you go. And if I'm helping you to remember those 5 elements of a well-functioning system, what I've got in my head is DICED. Systems are DICED, D-I-C-E-D. Can you see that? D-I-C-E-D, DICED. Hopefully helpful. But you can put anything in the centre there. You could have risk management, payroll, recruitment, anything. Today we're talking about healthy workplace, so that's why that's there. Ding! Oh, I'm loving this little bit of power I've got this morning. The evidence that we're looking for, if we start with that domain of leadership, or that requirement around leadership, the sorts of things that I'm looking for is, how are the leadership communicating there? So it might be in communication as CEO, it might be in a policy, in a procedure that I see that the leaders are role modelling, that they're positively role modelling, you know, what it means to promote a healthy workplace. You know, maybe they're doing things like working their hours, or, you know, making a commitment not to send emails in the middle of the night. Whatever it is, it's a thing that your organisation will decide what it looks like. But regardless the size of your organisation, the commitment should be communicated by the leaders, and the leaders should be role modelling the behaviours that support a healthy workplace. There should be delegations. So if you want things to happen, the only way you're going to get things to happen is to delegate them, yeah? Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Regardless your size, wellbeing could be on the agenda. You know, wellbeing, self-care, debriefing, you know, it could be part of the way we communicate. It could be part of the meetings and the way we check in. You might have a health and wellbeing committee, or if you're small, you might have a champion, you know, someone for whom this is a passion, and that they could be an influential person in the team. And even promotion on a website. Lots of organisations have started to have a page on their website or other places about why work for us. And they're really promoting, I've noticed lately, things like this is a healthy workplace, things like this is a diverse and inclusive workplace. So a bit the new black, isn't it? A bit the new black. Ding! I'm happy to have questions and comments at any time. So please type, unmute yourself. I'll keep an eye on the chat. The next domain, or the next aspect of the system here supporting a healthy workplace, are the policies and procedures. Now, you don't have to use this as a checklist. The evidence guide provides a really good list of the types of policies and procedures that you might have in place. And you might run your eyes down this list and say, yep, 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 yep. And you might even add to this list. But as a minimum, a policy around providing a healthy workplace, something about health and well-being, that's what I would look for. I have supplied to the team today a sample wellbeing policy and procedure that I picked up from an amazing organisation that I assessed. And I just thought, oh, I really like this. It was written in language that was really accessible. It was developed by the team. So the team got together and decided on all the things that would go into providing, you know, or promoting wellbeing in the workplace. And so they even had a strategy in there, and obviously commitment from the leadership around providing, I think it was $200 a quarter, could have even been a month, optionally taken by every team member. I mean, they were a small service, I have to say. They were a team of 11, and so they provided a wellbeing payment, like a self-care payment, and it was $200 either a quarter or a month, and they could, and the team members could use that in any way they liked to support their own wellbeing, because it looks like different things for different people, doesn't it? So I'm a bit cautious sometimes of organisations who have a policy that everybody gets a half-price gym membership, because, you know, it might not be what everybody would like. But other people might like to, you know, contribute towards a yoga course, or they might like to get themselves a new pair of trainers, you know, walking shoes or whatever. All right, but that was something that was there, and that's so it's quite a commitment, isn't it? But it was all about self-care, and I will say that it was a domestic and family violence service, and so vicarious trauma and those sorts of things were some of the elements of providing a healthy workforce that they were managing. Bing. The sorts of health and wellbeing programs, activities and support. I want to say that oftentimes when I ask this question of the staff, and this is generally a question that I would put to staff, I would ask it like this. I would say, tell me the things this organisation does to provide a healthy workplace for you. And they will list some things that may have happened in the last 12 months, let's say. And most of those things that they would tell me about would be things that have been one-offs, right? They happen to have happened, but they weren't part of a plan. They weren't part of a regular calendar. Do you see the difference between that ad hoc and planned approach? So with this standard, with this indicator, I'm looking for some plan, some idea that it's going to be happening as part of the system or routine of the organisation. All righty? So a calendar of events or awareness raising about health and wellbeing. If there's free services, if there's support services, you know, Are You OK Day is one example, and the sort of resources that would go with that. So, you know, even a bank of resources that could be accessed electronically could be a support that I might look for. Definitely EAP. I also look for things like access to supervision. I really have, staff have told me numerous times, when I ask that question about what happens here to provide a healthy workplace for you, they often talk about supervision and debriefing and things like that. So I would look for health and wellbeing to be part of the supervision discussion. I think if you're using things like reflective practice as a supervision model, that you might want to have a prompting question in there about, you know, health and wellbeing, a question that you could ask, you know, are you okay? How are we going, providing a healthy workplace for you? You know, is there anything more that you need? You know, how are you feeling? Are you feeling, you know, how are you feeling sort of mentally? How are you managing your workload? You know, those kinds of questions gently asked as part of supervision practice can get, you know, get more of a sort of normalcy or reduce any stigma around talking about mental health and wellbeing in the workplace, making it part of your practice. I'd love to hear about sort of, you know, workshops and training programs, and that mental health, a healthy workplace wellness would be part of induction. So I would look for it to be on a checklist for induction, for example. If there were things around a healthy workplace that you needed to, you know, induct people into, new employees into. But making it part of the conversation, you know, you don't have to spend a lot of money on events and things like that. It can be incidental. It can just be the way that you approach your team meetings, you know, what sort of opportunity do you give people to talk about how they're feeling at work? Remembering it's subjective, so you won't know how you're going unless you're talking to people, unless you're listening to people, I should say. Yeah, and sometimes listening to what's not being said, I suppose, to make it even trickier. Ding. Now the physical environment. As soon as I get out of my car, when I come to visit your service, I have got my auditor goggles on, and there's so much that I see. There is so much that I can see in the physical environment. It's totally observable. It's totally observable most of the time. I put these pictures here and you might think, oh, you know, that doesn't look anything like our workplace. You know, we've got a couple of sheds, or, you know, we've got nothing like our workplace. But when you look at those pictures there, you can see some of the things that I might see in your workplace. So you can use this again as a bit of a checklist. Ask yourself, you know, what's the design of your own workstation like? Like, does it really work for you? Does it really work for you ergonomically? Do you have the things that you need, your equipment, your tools, all the things that you do to work effectively and efficiently? Look nearby. Because we know what it's like. You know, it's a great source of stress, isn't it, to feel like your work environment is not conducive for you, and everybody will be different in terms of what they need their environment to be like. You know, that's been one of the positives about working from home, I think, is that people could create something that kind of works for them. Plants, greenery, wood, I don't know. how wood got on this list, but I've left it there because I thought, well, at least it'll be a conversation starter. Wood, some people like wood, I'm thinking. But definitely, I really respond to windows. I really respond to greenery and plants, but it's not for everyone. But whatever makes people feel good about being in the workplace. You know, when you feel good, you're a bit more productive, aren't you? When you feel good, you're a bit more resilient. You can weather the challenge. So lots of people would order a stand-up desk if given the option. Lots of people are given the option to order their own chair, because the way people sit and how they're comfortable in a chair makes a difference to people. So supplying a chair that's a standard chair, that might create some problems. You might, you know, that could create some problems for people that might need certain sort of support with their chair. And a kitchen that looks like a staff area that's separate and where people can relax on their break. That's not a thoroughfare that's been an afterthought. And many places I've been in, for me, that's been a bit of a red flag, is just that there's sort of very little to supply a sense of sort of comfort and relaxation for the staff. So I get a big range of exemplars in this space, but I also get some, oh, gee, that's hard, you know, for people to have to, you know, work with that. And places where people can prepare food, where people can share food, and that there's healthy options around. Someone was telling me here yesterday, I'm in a lovely service, I don't mind telling you, I'm at the Mallee Domestic Family Violence and Sexual Assault Unit, and someone here was telling me, isn't black tea a bit of a thing of the past? Like, you know, your normal, you know, your Lipton sort of black tea. You know, and yet that's what lots of organisations supply as the freebie for the staff. And this lady was saying to me, you know, most of my colleagues here don't drink caffeinated drinks. They drink herbal drinks, no caffeine sort of drinks. And so we've been lobbying for a while for the organisation to supply a variety of non-caffeinated drinks, which is happening. But that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like, unless you're talking to the people in your organisation, you won't know. You won't know what their needs might be and how easily you might be able to meet them. And people's needs are met in the workplace, I tell you, amazing things can happen. How's that all feeling? Ding. Oh, yes, I wanted to say the evidence that I'm looking for. Things to consider with your evidence. I'm using a rule of 3. Just had to check there, but I was actually holding up 3 fingers. The rule of 3 in auditing practice. You're going to see it all across auditing practice. If there's any auditors in the room, you know what I'm talking about. But I would generally look for each indicator. So if you think about those 4 sort of domains of this healthy workplace indicator, leadership, policies, procedures, programs and activities, and the physical environment, I would like you to show me 3 pieces of evidence. I'd like you to give me 3 examples of leadership commitment, 3 examples of policies, procedures or ways that you've documented that commitment, 3 examples of programs and activities, and 3 examples of what you're doing in the physical environment. That would be sufficient. All right, you can give me more. Go crazy if you'd like to, but that would be the bare minimum. It's also great if you're doing things like audits and you're checking your system. You're seeing if your system is working well. You're checking in with your people. You've got it as part of a survey. You've got it as part of your discussion in team meetings. And when you start to gather some data about how well you're progressing here, and it's not always easy to put metrics and measures around things like a healthy workplace because of its subjectivity, but your people will help you to determine what some measures of success might be. Then benchmark yourself, but also look to other organisations that are doing this and benchmark some good practice with them. All right, look around for some exemplars and see if you want to benchmark yourself. Set some metrics and measures that you can easily check from, you know, periodically. So do a survey every year or however often you want to do it to check this system. Action plans, like we're doing surveys, we're doing audits, we're doing all this finding out about systems, but then we need to turn it into action. So I am looking for, if you've done a survey, I am looking for the action plan. It's not enough to just know. When you know what's needed, you need to put it into action. So having an action plan, I don't mind if it's not all complete. I just like to see that there's a plan. Okay. And that people in the organisation, right across the organisation, would be given information about how well we're doing. So that reports would go up and across and down and, you know, share the success, share the progress. And even the fails. If you try something and it's an epic fail, share that too. That's good learning. Yeah, I think that's about all I was going to say today. But I'm very happy if you have any questions about what the assessor is looking for. Hope that's been helpful. Anyone, anything?
Is there any questions? We've got something from Christy. Christy, would you like to ask the question? I'll take you off mute. No? Not letting me. You'll have to do it yourself. Oh, if not Christy, then Anna Barton, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Susan. Marie, when it comes to the physical work environment, and as you pointed out, a lot of staff are working from home. What are the measures? What are the things that you're looking for in relation to that work environment? Is it, you know, home assessment checklists or what? Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some fabulous home assessment checklists. So I recently worked with Good Shepherd, and they have got a working from home self-assessment checklist.
Yeah.
So that might be developed from, I do know that the safe work authorities in each state and nationally have great checklists. So I'd use one of those. They also had, which I found very interesting, they also had some working from home privacy guidelines. It's getting off topic, I know, but I thought that was a really great inclusion, because when you take people into the home environment, you've got to make sure those layers of privacy are there, especially if you're doing things like working with trauma. You know, like who's hearing it and all that sort of thing. So I thought that was really good practice. But yes, the physical environment, but also the environment for privacy and those sorts of things should be considered there.
Would there be an aspect in there in relation to, you know, that leisure time, or how they're using some of their time to relax, or I don't know, go for walks or anything in the assessment? Would you be looking at a question around, so what do you do when, because they're isolated at home, what do you do to manage that? Because some environments might have working from home for a significant amount of time, with lockdowns and everything. So what are the type of things that you'd be looking as part of your assessment and audit process?
I would be looking that there would be a conduit for a conversation about that, and that would be something that was offered in terms of flexibility, choice and control, but that was monitored by the manager. So I might ask a manager, how do you monitor workload when staff are working from home? You know, how do you monitor that people are working their set hours or not working too much, or, you know, taking breaks? And that's a question I would put to managers. And that sits nicely within the work health and safety sort of indicators, as well as the workplace sort of flexibility indicators also. So that's where they would come up.
Thank you.
And we've got another question from Kate Lord.
Kate Lord, hello. Is that my friend Kate?
Hi Marie, how are you?
Hello. I'm very
Been a
good. Nice to
long
see you.
time.
There she is. Nice to see you. Well, Kate's no stranger to any of this because she's an amazing assessor herself.
Yeah, and I was just going to comment that, I mean, we've done lots of assessments during COVID, and people have been really creative in terms of fostering, well-being and connection. And, they've had morning teas where they've, sent people cupcakes to their houses, and, they've had morning teas over Zoom, or, they've prepared meals and had meals, or, regular kind of, town hall kind of meetings, and just needing to make the effort to connect more regularly, more consciously, whether that be on a daily basis, if it's a small team, or weekly if you're a big organisation. It just, yeah. And they've really, those things have been really appreciated and valued, and have been quite critical to people's, well-being and mental health in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that, when we're interviewing staff, particularly, there's sometimes responses that would be indicators of red flags, and when we ask, if you're working from home, how often do you get to connect with your team, and how often do you get to check in with your manager, we often find, as Kate's explaining, there's so many exemplars in this space, like the non-negotiable morning huddle online, everyone, regardless the size of the team, Catholic Care, Wilcannia Forbes, they just did this so amazingly. They used Teams, and they, it was everyone in. There was like 80 people, and it only went for 20 minutes, but it was just, we all see exemplars in that space. But it is, when we're thinking about the homework environment, there's that layer over it of connection, maintaining connection. Do you know one organisation recently? They're large, South Australian, big Aboriginal medical service, and they realised that they had a lot of women, parents on maternity leave and paternity leave. And so they created a program that enabled those staff to connect back in the team meetings if they wanted to, which I thought, oh, wow, that's really cool. So they had a whole policy on, maintaining connection while you're on extended leave. And that was part of their wellbeing policy. I liked it. I really liked it a lot. Thank you, Kate. So good to see you.
You too, Marie.
Thank you, Marie. I'm just going to share the slides for the National Working Group, just to go through their resources. So bear with me for a moment. So Queensland, Roz, are you able to share and speak to this?
Yeah, certainly. So as Kylie had mentioned, we also have a work health and wellbeing toolkit that Queensland-based workplaces can access and use. Very much along the lines of having leadership commitment to start with. Part of the planning phase as well is also identifying and assessing what the risks are. And that's something that's really critical as well, that if you just, and I think it's been the flavour of the conversation, that if you don't talk to workers or if you don't get their feedback, then you're really just kind of going in blind. And so that's something that we found is really important, to be able to assess what is there and then translate that information into an action plan. And that's something that, again, is one of the hardest steps to do, that people are good at doing surveys and finding out what's going on, but to actually then translate that into, well, what does that look like, and what are the tangible things that we put into workplaces, that's been the sticking point a lot of times, for at least what we've seen in our experience. So to help with that, we've just released an online learning course, and this is, I guess, a broad picture of, well, what does work health and wellbeing look like in a workplace? But then it goes through the different steps of the plan, implement and evaluate. So if this is something new, then that can be a way that you can touch base, and the information in there will absolutely apply to the context within South Australia. The legislation across the board is quite similar, but there are a few personality traits between the different jurisdictions. So just take that into account if there is something specific there. And we do have, excitingly, within Queensland, we have a psychological health code of practice coming out towards the end of this year. So that's just something to look out for, because that's just extra support towards the legislation to create a mentally healthy workplace, which is awesome. The audit tool is really easy to use as well. This is something that, again, from that system level approach, how you can just check in with what do you have in the work organisation, what's the leadership commitment look like, through to what your policies and procedures, communication, and then all the way down to the worker as well. So that one's self-assessed, so you can go in, complete the online form, and then a couple of days' time you'll get a fancy report, but you do get all your questions back instantly, which is really handy. And the other item, which we've also found really important, is from the worker level to be able to get their feedback. So we have a few different options. If you're a small business or working within a small business, then typically some of the worker surveys aren't as user-friendly because you require at least 20 people to fill it out, where most times just a discussion around having some key points to focus on, well, what are the risk factors within our organisation? What are the things we focus on first? You can do that over a morning tea or a team meeting, and it's really simple to do. But if you are in a slightly larger organisation, the Healthy Workers Survey covers everything from the chronic disease risk factors, so your smoking, nutrition, physical activity, alcohol consumption. There's also sleep in there as well, and also part of the physical environment from a health perspective, but also an occupational health perspective, just to flag any of those issues such as sun safety or chemical exposure. And then there's also the People at Work survey. If you haven't heard of this one, it is a psychological health risk assessment. So it looks at the psychosocial risk factors within your workplace, and it's pulled together by workers filling out what are their work demands, are they finding that they've got issues within the team from a management level, from a peer support. It also touches on bullying. It can also touch on your sprains and strains side of things, and also violence within the workplace. So they're really, I guess, critical things that are starting to come out within our Australian workplaces. And so that one you can log in, do it all yourself, and get a report back on that, just to be able to really just say, this is where I am, what do I do with that information? And so all free for across the board, which is really handy. And we also have some action plan templates and some intervention ideas as well, for if you're looking at physical activity, what can that look like from the organisation, the physical environment, and the worker level as well. So all the links are online, but happy to pass on any extra information as needed.
Oh, thank you, Ros. Oops. There we go. Rachel or Kate, do you want to just talk through these?
Yeah, so these two slides are from the Mentally Healthy Workplaces team under Safe Work New South Wales. And our team is focused on trying to create more mentally healthy workplaces across all different business, public sector, not-for-profit types across New South Wales. And everything that we're offering is underpinned by a strategy that came out in 2018 to 2022. And that is based on a validated benchmarking tool where we took a large sample of New South Wales businesses and benchmarked, sort of similar to what was spoken about earlier, where they were ranked across different levels along the capabilities to creating a mentally healthy workplace. And what we are looking to do through that strategy is to turn the dial and move from workplaces having a basic awareness of mental health all the way to having an integrated and sustained approach at work for managing mental health. So in 2020, we did a midpoint. We reissued our benchmarking and saw that there was progress. And now we're just in the process of doing our end of evaluation 2022 eval. And we'll get the results of that and see if we turned that dial even further. And our new strategy will come out in 2023, so many 20s, to continue the work that we're doing. So that's sort of just what's sitting underneath all of the tools and resources that we have. And now I'll just go into what we offer. So you'll see here, we have free mental health at work support for that's available to all New South Wales not-for-profits or businesses with under 200 employees. And this includes direct practical coaching, where business owners and employers can have up to 4 hours on the phone with our supplier transitioning well, and they can actually have one-on-one coaching and support for a particular issue that they might be having, whether that's customer aggression or bullying, as I mentioned earlier, poor change management. So you can actually talk to an expert around a specific issue that your workplace is having. And then we've also got 3 types of training that we offer. So these are run by Black Dog Institute, and we've got it at the business owner and employer level, for leaders and managers, and then as well for workers. And as I mentioned there at the bottom, there's the availability of who can register, and these are offered to businesses for free. And then just on the next slide. So that was all of our sort of programs, but we've also got a range of self-service resources on our website here, and you'll see in the QR code. And some of those include case studies. We've got our code of practice on there. We've got resource kits, and that includes policy templates. We've got a resource kit for different sectors, for regional workplaces. So there's a suite of self-service resources on that website that is obviously tailored for New South Wales, but there might also be things that nationally the advice and tools that we provide might be helpful. And then what we have coming up, which is very exciting, that we're launching in October for Mental Health Month, is a workplace well-being assessment. So this is actually taking our benchmarking tool that underpinned our strategy and making it available for businesses and organizations to do themselves. So people can undertake the benchmarking tool, and it sends out surveys to people at a worker level and a manager level, and comes back with a sort of level ranking of that business's capability to create a mentally healthy workplace, and has insights around areas that might need to be, someone is calling me, that might need to be worked on. And then through those insights, you can develop a plan to create a mentally healthy workplace. So that's a very high level overview of the stuff that we have to offer at New South Wales and Safe Work. And you can scan the QR code or message me if you have any questions. And Kate is also going to speak on some of the other stuff that we're doing from Safe Work New South Wales.
Oh, thank you. Over to you, Kate.
Great, thanks. I'm really conscious of time, so I've included quite a bit of text in here just so that everybody can jump onto our website later and have a look at some of the resources that we've got. But just really quickly, we've got a number of videos. Those videos are really raising awareness of work health and safety and encouraging workers to speak up about safety hazards. I know we've been talking a lot about mental health today, but safety, I think, is really important in sort of building that you know, positive mentally healthy workplace as well. And they certainly go hand in hand. So a lot of the resources here are really about supporting workers in creating a healthy and safe workplace. We've also got some great case study videos. We've got some more videos coming out shortly as well around how to manage psychosocial hazards in the disability and community services space. So it really talks about some things, some psychosocial hazards that you might see within the workplace, and also how a manager can support a worker in addressing those to make the workplace safer. We've also got another video on work-related violence that will be coming out as well, and the challenges of work-related violence and how to address those. A lot of the things that we do talk about in these resources and the videos is around consultation. So the importance of consultation at work and having a conversation with your workers about often your workers know what some of the hazards may be and risks in the workplace, and they often have solutions to fix it. So it's really important, and it's also a legal obligation to consult with workers. We've also got some risk assessment tools. So there's a variety of those there around transporting people in a vehicle, commencing a provision of service, and then we've got fact sheets and checklists around the transition of support from one provider to another, and information sharing checklists. The great thing about all those tools is they're all editable PDFs, so you can actually pull what you like off the website, add, delete things, make it sort of suit your already existing policies and procedures. So we're really encouraging you to do that. So please jump on to our Safe Work website, and we've got a dedicated page for disability support sector. So please take a look on that, and please use those resources as you see fit. And any questions, just shout out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kate.
I think I've just put in a few extra slides on some of the other organisations. So, you know, everyone will have these as a PowerPoint presentation, so you can have a look. Each jurisdiction has got great tools and resources and support. So just encourage everybody who's joined in today to reach out locally. All of the jurisdictions should be able to help and support. For those of you in South Australia, we've got some exciting times coming ahead as well, very similar to the others. Around, you know, I'm going to say October at this stage, our Healthy Workplaces toolkit that we've had around for a long time is just going to be re-released. We've also will have a Healthy Workplace check. So perfect opportunity to be able to have that in terms of your evidence, completing that beforehand and having a look at it later as well. It will give you a score around how you're going across these elements around creating a healthy workplace. We also run a community of practice event 3 times per year. And so that's like-minded people who are trying to drive change across workplace health and wellbeing. And we usually come together for a couple of hours and do some sharing. So if you jump onto the Healthy Workplaces website, you're able to register to join onto our e-newsletter, and then you'll get an invitation to come along to those events as well. So keep an eye out for everything that's happening in South Australia. For those of you who come along to the community practice, come up and say hello and introduce yourself face to face, but also available via email there as well at any point in time. Very grateful for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. And thank you to all the presenters today. I really appreciate it. We did go over time. It was a hot topic. But if you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can post them, or email us, and we'll find the right person to respond. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you want another one, something like this on another topic, do let us know. We'll be sending out a survey. And have a great day, people. Get up, stretch, go for a walk, enjoy the day. Goodbye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.